Welcome back to our guide on importing a character into Super Smash Bros. 64. Today, we're actually going to focus on importing said character. To get to this point, we looked at finding our model, building our model, modifying our model, texturing our model, rigging the model, and now we're going to import the model. So, what you need to do is you need to find Golden Editor and install it. And once you have that installed, we're going to want to go to Tools, Switch Editor Game, and we're going to go to Super Smash Brothers. Once we've done that, you should see the Smash logo. Hit Tools again. We're going to go down to Animation Editor. When you click on that, this right here, the Animation Editor, is where we will be importing our character. I'm going to use this ROM hack that I've been messing with, and since I know we're using Ness, I'm going to go down in my menu. I'm going to find Ness, his character. I'm going to click Edit. And that loads up Ness. There's a lot here. Let's break some of this down. You can tell each section is in squares. This first section here is model edit. This is talking about the type of model. There's a high res model, a low res model, and a skeleton. We will cover low res and skeleton later. There are parts to the model, which I have not had much work with yet. If we move over, there are special functions, parsing, importing. This part is what we're going to be using today. Icons for stock, a way to look at your textures, animations, and special parts. I have not worked with special parts much. We will cover that when we start getting into animation. Let's import Brian. Well, we can't just import Brian straight out. If we click Import and Add Textures, you'll see they ask for a TXT file, they will ask for an FBX file, and then they will ask for a third TXT file, or second TXT file. We have to generate those files. So what do we need? What we want to do is we want to create a texture and a special textures file. The texture file is going to tell us what textures are on the model. We know for a fact that Brian has his body, his cloth, and his boots. So they should match the textures that live with the model. There's the staff, his hair one, his gem. These are all the textures. The more textures you have that are on the base model, the more you have to put here. It's just a simple text file. You just got to File, New Text File, copy your lines. You can do it by just going to the model. There's a way to do it automatically if you're not interested in using any type of shell scripts or using any type of command line. Just copy paste. Once you're done, save it. You're good. Then, since we know we're changing Brian's colors, we want to create a special textures TXT. Now, special textures TXT is primarily associated with what is changing on the model. Remember when we talked about paletting, how the colors would change and modify? Well, they go in special textures. He has a hurt animation. That goes in special textures. Let's break this down a little bit. There is many things you can put in here. This is the most basic. We'll add more to it as we make the model more complex. For now, let's look at what the basics are. Brian has a face hurt animation. I know his face changes color, but that's handled by the palette. We have special image and then the image that's changing. So Brian's face will change, and if it is a hurt image, we're going to use the alternate texture, Brian's hurt. So I just would copy this name here with the file extension and just paste it there. And I do that for each color. Why am I doing that for each color? Well, that's because I have a blue face that's going to be changing. Since the faces are changing color with the palette, you have to declare it the same as you would the palette. Since I have 4 colors, being Brian's face changing to blue, and then I'm going to use the same colors for the rest. But then I have his normal look, his blue face look, his green shirt, and his red shirt. 4 color palettes. This has to be defined 4 times. And since the hurt image is part of that, it has to be defined 4 times. So if it's hurt, use this, use this, use this. If you have no face swapping, you don't need that section. And if you have no color palettes, you don't need these sections. But if you're going to do all of this, save it. Some other bits of information to think about while messing with texture palettes and their special textures is order. I've gone in and I created a yellow alt for Brian, and I need to remember the order in which I put each color. His normal color comes first. That needs to be first. But then I need to keep green with green, red with red, and yellow with yellow. The order does matter as it's read in. If you do not maintain this order, then your colors will be combined or mixed or mashed, and it's not going to look as expected. So remember, when you're creating your special textures file, always keep the textures in order. Once you've done that, make sure you have your file saved. Let's go down to Golden Editor and let's import. So I'm going to go to Import and Add Textures. We're going to find our model, click on Texture, click on your model, click on Special Textures, and then wait. Normal, present. Do you want to recalculate? Yes. This is making sure all the triangles, all the tries are facing outward. And with that, we have imported Brian over Ness. This is what he would look like. There will be some animation and bone changes. That's just how it works because of the way the armature is. If we take a look at our model, looks basically the same. Notice how all these other Ness textures dropped. That's because it did the low poly model and the skeleton as well. So you're going to have to sort of clean out your workspace as you go. But that's Brian. He's now on Ness. Let's take a look at a few of the issues that I had discussed before. For example, alternate colors. See how his face is changed there? In the game, it's not going to look like this, but this does allow me to see the alternate texture. Okay, let's go to, there's his green, there's his red, and there's his normal. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I wonder if our special textures document is weird. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nope, that looks correct. We're good. Why don't we see this in action? Once you are finished making your changes, click Write ROM. I'm going to put this ROM in the same spot that Brian is at the moment. I'm going to save it. And then now I'm going to use my testing software. We're going to load it. Take a look. Find the ROM. Let's see how this looks. If we go to here, this is fine.
Free for all!
Now if we go to Ness,
Ness!
there's Brian. Right?
Ness! Stop! Ness! Yoshi! Ness!
There we go. As you can see, we're good. Now,
Three, 2, 1, go!
notice how everything is just fast at that point until I pause. That's because we don't have a low poly model. This is the next step to making a low poly model. But again, when you pause it, you can see. So here's Brian. His eyes are closed. His eyes are closed. I'm wondering. Ah, there we go. They're open there. Here we go. So there he is. Brian is now in Super Smash Bros. 64. What we're going to do next is look at some of the issues that come from bad palettes. Let's go back to Brian's folder. Why don't we modify the green template here? If I load up the green template, notice my color map. It's nice, smooth green. I'm going to re-index this image now. Transform, mode, RGB, indexed. Let's index it. Does not seem to have changed. I know what we'll do. Image, mode, index it. We're going to expand the height a little bit. We'll add in some colors because we have plenty. Because all we want to do is have a different palette. Do this. There we go. Now that we've done that, what we want to do is we want to image, mode, index this one. Notice how the palette has shifted. If we clean out the image now, let's crop it back to its original size. Image, crop to selection. Export this image as, I don't want to override my old one. Let's put _1. Yep, ignore the alpha channels. Export it. Now that we've done that, let's put this in our textures file over green. Brian Green. There we go. Now let's re-import. Import textures, texture, Brian, special textures. Yes. Again, if you have too many leaf bones, this process can take minutes. It's very slow. Notice the back of Brian here. While it looked okay to begin with, you see the back? There's this red tint on it. There's these red lines. And we know those red lines are not present in the texture. You can see the texture. This is what I meant when I said the palettes swap. It gets worse depending on how drastic of a change the palette is. So this is what you want to avoid. This is the reason why we follow the texture process. Create your texture and then only change the palettes. Otherwise you'll start getting all these weird extra artifacts. Now the other thing I wanted to discuss was the face. If you remember correctly, when we dealt with his face, the fact that it was the hurt face, we had the ability of putting an _C in it. So we're going to say _C. We'll put this in place of the texture as well. Let's see here. Hurt, hurt, hurt. Now let's import that. Let's see here. Import and textures, textures, high poly, special textures. All right. What I can see, it's not as bad as it has been in the past. Using the _C will cause some form of corruption. You can see it a little bit with Brian. Alright, so that's it. That's importing. Now what we want to do is look into making him more unique. But to do that, we can't override Ness forever. So the process for now is going to be trying to get him to be a unique character in the game. And then we can start making changes outside of constantly overriding Ness. But until then, thank you. Have a good day.